The world's preeminent business growth expert, Jay Abraham.
Jay is not you.
Jay showing you how to find more money. He's making it rain.
This is a man that you cannot afford to be without.
1-800-88-12345. This is the ultimate entrepreneur with Jay Abraham.
Hi, it's Paul Durante. Joe Polish and Dean Jackson have one of the best and most popular podcasts, ilovemarketing.com. And Joe's the creator of the Genius Network, which is an extraordinary organization where you can connect with some of the world's most successful entrepreneurs, like his friend Richard Branson. He hangs out in Richard's kitchen.
I go, when's the last time you did laundry? And he's like, I've never done laundry. Like, you've never done laundry. I'm like, when you're a kid. He's like, no, my mom did my laundry. He's like, you don't do that stuff, Joe. He goes, you hire people to do that. And he said, and if you hire right, he goes, the time that you will put into hiring the right person in the beginning will save you thousands of hours.
And Richard's never been inside a grocery store. That's coming up. 1-800-88-12345. That's the ultimate entrepreneur hotline by Dial 800. Get more calls, more sales, more response with a custom memorable number just like ours. Dial800.com. They have amazing customer service. Dean Jackson, Joe Polish, and Jay Abraham.
This is going to be really interesting because turnabout is fair play, and there's a song, Everything Old is New Again, and the two people we're talking to have a context of understanding that is, to be disrespectful, it's profound. To be respectful, it's vast, because they have a love for marketing that is expressed by their activities. They go all over the world to interview people who are seminal marketeers, who have pieces of the puzzle, who have done extraordinary things, or who are seemingly ordinary people who understand something at such a distinctive level that it's a great, great, great privilege to learn it. But they've done some of the most interesting, eclectic, and fascinating interviews, and we're going to go into the mind. So first of all, Dean and Joe and Dean, thank you for sharing with us what you're going to be doing in a minute.
Thank you. Well, glad to be here.
Yeah.
And I've admired both of your work, and I like what you do, and I like the purity of your purpose. So I'm going to take off the gloves, and we're going to do Rorschach. I'm going to ask you questions that will delve the catacombs of some of the great interviews you've done and the lessons learned and the sort of the implications that have evolved from it. And this will be free form because I like that, okay?
Yep, sure.
So of all the interviews you've done, let's start with unique and let's start with universal. What are some of the things that seem to be universal that almost everybody keeps saying in some variation of the same way that is very important to share with our entrepreneurs right now?
I would definitely say this is the absolute sheer importance of marketing and positioning and packaging yourself in a world where people that don't understand it not only don't get it, but they actually fight against it. And what people are not up on, they're down on. And so we tend to seek out people that understand the importance of the subject matter. You know, since our podcast is called I Love Marketing, we tend to do interviews with a lot of marketers, although we've, done interviews with Dean Ornish and Dr. Daniel Amen and Mark Hyman and health-related stuff and all that sort of stuff. But most of it is around business. And so the universal things that come out is just marketing is everything to marketing is really important. You hear different varying degrees of how people put an emphasis on it, but there's a real tendency to talk about marketing, and then the other is identifying who your person is. What's the niche? What's the target? What's the interest? What's the problem that someone has that goes back to that famous Robert Collier line, which you want to enter a conversation that's already existing in your prospect's mind. And so those are sort of the universal things that everyone tends to agree on, the purpose of it. Then the ways that people go about connecting are a whole nother issue.
I think for me, looking at it, the common element that even the most popular guests that we've had, the ones that have had the most resonance, are really at the bottom of it. They really care. They care about their clients. They care about the people that they're serving, and they do look at it as a method of serving people. I always love to hear that really ringing true in the people that we interview. We've had some incredible guests, and that's really one of the most common things, that they really care about people.
I mean, my observation of greatness starts with authenticity. And it may sound, I mean, there's a lot of very bright people. There are a lot of impressive achievements, but I think true greatness starts with authenticity and your desire to connect at a deep level with whatever segment of humanity you're focused on. I think it's really important.
Well, I'll say this one. We have one where Blake Mykowski, who is the founder of Tom's Shoes. And shoes, for every pair of shoes, it's a one-for-one model. So for every pair of shoes that they sell, they give away a pair of shoes to a child in need in another country. And that business, and it is a business, it's a for-profit business, gets treated like nonprofit. And I actually met Blake at a Virgin Unite event because I'm Richard Branson's largest fundraiser. And so I had a whole bunch of people, 92 people, come to an event that had a little over 300 people at it in L.A.
That's impressive.
So Richard had Blake sitting at our table, and that's where I first met him. And so we kind of hit it off and did an interview. And there's this term in the nonprofit world, giving back, that a lot of people use to flat out guilt people into wanting to contribute or donate. And I kind of understand the terminology, but I was talking with him about that statement, and he, what he said, and I said, the whole statement of giving back, if I steal someone's shoes, I should give them back. But if you haven't taken anything from anyone, it's not like you owe anybody anything.
Interesting. What was his response?
I totally agreed. He said, yeah, absolutely. He's like, that's one of the problems with the nonprofit world is that, there's this whole notion that because you're successful, you just are obligated to have to give people things. And he's like, people that are very successful and create value are already giving tremendous amounts to people. I mean, he didn't say it in those exact words.
But that's true. I mean, you're stimulating the economy. You're already giving back, and you're creating opportunities and possibilities. So did he have a different take?
Oh, yeah. His whole take was, you're going to serve the world the best by going out and actually making a profit. Because if you're not making a profit, your life is spent begging from people to give you money versus having something that people will buy, and then you can contribute to it that way, which I completely agree with, because I think the nonprofit world is filled with a lot of talented people. But if there's two areas that misuse talent, it's nonprofit and politics. They misuse talent. And a lot of the nonprofit world is filled with do-gooders that are actually leeching off of good doers, guilt.
I love the juxtaposition. That's fabulous. I agree with you. You know Paul Pilzer.
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
You remember he had a book he wrote. I don't know when he wrote it, but it said, God wants you to be rich. And his whole premise, it wasn't really a political book, but it was that everybody thinks that abject poverty and basically denying yourself all the enrichment is really being a great person. Creating value that can be used certainly for good, but also creates economic growth, that creates opportunity, that creates possibilities. That's the greatest gift you can give to humanity, I think.
Totally. I mean, and if you want to really help people, create an enterprise that is helping you, because the more capable and the more strong you are financially, relationship-wise, the more impact you're going to have.
Dean's friends with Tony Robbins. Up next, why Tony doesn't like marketing. I'm Paul Durante. Jay's the world's preeminent business growth expert. His fee, $50,000 a day. But you can join the Abraham Mastermind Alliance free. It's a dynamic organization of like-minded entrepreneurs, business owners, and professionals from all over the world who have a passionate commitment to building a business that's preeminent and highly profitable. The Abraham Mastermind Alliance, totally free for fans of this show. Free downloads, free resources, all the info's at abraham.com.
Welcome to Play It, a new podcast network featuring radio and TV personalities talking business, sports, tech, entertainment, and more. Play it at play.it.
Money is coming to me. Money is coming to me.
Have a lot of fun and make a lot of money. This is the Ultimate Entrepreneur with Jay Abraham.
Who is somebody that is very, very undervalued as far as how profound their mind is, that most people would never fully appreciate, but that you've had the privilege of getting to know, and the two of you have been able to interview, maybe befriend or be befriended by, that is just somebody, and maybe it's somebody we'll never get to know, but something about them, I don't care. I'm trying to take this into a very eclectic realm that's not really boring and sterile, so you can take it anywhere and any answer you think is appropriate for the listener.
I'll talk about Tony Robbins for a second.
Okay.
What's about Tony?
I know Tony.
Yeah. Jay, you and Tony are really friends. So, and Dean and Tony play golf, so it's kind of a small world.
Okay.
So when we had Tony on, one of the questions that we ask people, Jay, is we always ask them, why do you love marketing, or when did you fall in love with marketing? And Tony said something that nobody has ever said on the show. He said, well, I never really did like marketing, but I love people, and I love getting results, and so I just focused on that. And the profound insight that I had into that was how Drucker, the very famous Drucker quote, talks about there are only two things that matter in business.
Of course.
And innovation. And when you really think about it, we've all kind of taken comfort in being under that umbrella by being on the marketing side, but we think often about innovation as something that scientists do and inventors do. But really, innovation at its core is about figuring out how to get better results for people. And so that was that was a personal shift for me, is really understanding
I love that.
What innovation is. And
that's a very simplistic, but he's right. It's a vehicle to communicate and connect with the maximum number of people in the most authentic and enriching way. Joe?
Yeah, I'll say someone who's unknown. I mean, I have plenty of things that, 2 weeks ago, it's not up yet, and we're not going to put on I Love Marketing, but I did a video interview with Justice Sandra Day O'Connor, who's 83 years old.
Oh, that must have been interesting.
Oh, yeah, it's fascinating. And, we've interviewed Peter Diamandis, and, he always has some incredible insights.
Yeah, very bright man.
Yeah, to the world. But I'll talk about someone which I don't even know if you know this, Jay, but we have a friend named JR. And JR is a former Make-A-Wish kid, and of course you'll remember him now.
I do remember him.
Which was to meet you. I mean, his wish was to meet Jay Abraham, and this is truly, I don't know the last time you interacted with JR, but that was 10 years ago, I think, when he met you.
Probably, yeah, or longer.
Now he's in his, mid-20s, and he listens to all of our I Love Marketing episodes. I've become good friends with him. He had a goal to, help grant wishes for kids. He was interviewing me. And we've done 2 episodes with him on I Love Marketing, and I had to talk him into it because he's incredibly private. I mean, and one thing that I really like that I thought was an incredibly good insight, we've interviewed a lot of people on the subject of efficiency and effectiveness and time management and prioritization and all that sort of stuff. And his whole thing of like time management by attitude, which is, the really wealthy, successful people, they don't have like gigantic to-do lists. Some do, but it's really time management by attitude, where they have to realize after a certain point, I don't need to do any of this crap, and that the method of getting things done is less about what you do and more about what you say no to. And like the Warren Buffett punch card methodology of really evaluating the opportunity cost of everything that you say yes to, and only saying yes to the things that truly matter, and knowing that no in most cases is going to be more important than yes, as long as your yeses are really matter. And coming from a kid that literally has read everything by Warren Buffett. Yes. Here's the interesting thing, too, about him, which I got to mention this. He has read, watched, or listened to everything that you've ever produced that is available that he has access to. And he's incredibly sharp, and he's a huge Jay Abraham fan, and he's a really smart marketer. And the thing that I've most got out of him is just discernment. I mean, on how to look at stuff. And so I've learned from that kid, and we did a couple of really great interviews with him on
That's great. And I remember that I was profoundly impacted. He was in Canada, as I recall, and I thought, that's an interesting wish that somebody... I was flattered, but I was also a little incredulous. I thought, why would somebody want that to be their wish? But he was a very impressive young man. I think he came with his father, and hopefully I was gracious to him. But it's really nice to know that fast forward, he's doing really remarkably good work, and he's got a very impressive understanding of how the world works.
Oh, Oh, yeah, and he does very well financially. I actually pay him monthly to do a lot of stuff with me. He's one of the sharpest people I know, and I know the meeting with you changed his life. I think out of all of the long-term things that someone in that situation who was entrepreneurial-minded could ever wish for, wishing to, we even talked about that on the episode. I mean, when you're a Make-A-Wish kid, you wish for Jay Abraham. Why did you do that? And he explained it. So it's really insightful.
That's neat. That wasn't where I was intended to go, but certainly my ego it's not only aggrandized, but you're making me feel old. But both of those are still comforting. I'd rather be old and recognized and make a contribution than not. So going back into your realm of interviews and inquiry, and you can transcend it, but I think that what you guys do is so important and so admirable and so interesting that I just suspect, I don't know about you guys, but I've been interviewing people all my life. And I don't always really recognize how profound their comments are until oftentimes after the interview is over and I think about it. How about you?
Yeah, totally. Sometimes you don't, it's like you don't even know the lesson until you're put into a situation where, that really applies. Like we've interviewed Mary Ellen Tribby a couple of times, and she's always said a couple of great lines. But one of my favorites from her is 1 thing done equals money, and 5 things undone equals no money. And that, I can always come back to that, and it will make more sense where I find myself working on multiple projects or I'm involved in different things, but not only are they not completed, but I haven't really handed it off to someone else that can finish it, and then I take on something else. And it just exasperates your time if you operate that way. So that's one of those core just things that I hear, but it also really helps me with clients to help me think about things. And then Dean, of course, has this whole analogy of playing golf. And I want Dean to explain this on...
Great.
I interviewed him, and so I could explain it, but Dean's on the line, so I'd rather him...
Sure.
The concept
Go ahead, Dean.
of golf and getting things done. So it's a good one.
Okay, please.
Yeah, that's perfect, Joe, because I've always had ADD and had a hard time kind of getting myself to focus on the one thing. I always would see how I could have to create little constructs to get myself to focus. So one day I started thinking about, is this true in every area of my life? And I realized that I'm able to focus when I go play golf. And so I started to look at the different elements that are present there that make it so easy to focus. So I came up with an analogy for GOLF, an acronym. So G is a goal. So when I say I'm going to go play golf, I've blocked off that time in my calendar, and I've made the decision that that's what I'm going to go do. When O is an optimal environment, and the golf course is an optimal environment for playing golf. It's set up perfectly for it. You got 18 holes. You start on one, and you go all the way through. And L is for limited